Welcome to Hard to Beat, the show that takes on winning the sports biz game, working in the industry, sponsorships, venues, sport marketing sales. We cover it all. This week, we are brought to you by 920 Travel Concierge, the very best in corporate and personal travel concierge services. And now here is our host, Norman Leach.
Well, hello, everybody. This is National Shooting Sports Month across North America, and we're very pleased to have with us Sandra Honor, the president of the Shooting Federation of Canada. Now, her bio is amazing. A national level swimmer, national level shooter, national level coach, and the president of the Shooting Federation. So, Sandra, welcome to Hard to Beat. We're glad you could be with us.
Thanks, Norman.
Yeah, look, we're really interested in covering sports that are not necessarily mainstream. Everybody knows about football and baseball, and maybe even soccer is becoming more popular. But I'm wondering if you could just sort of give us a lay of the land, a state of the union on the shooting sports in Canada.
Well, the shooting sports in Canada encompass many different types of firearms, including handguns, air pistols, air rifles, black powder, cowboy action. There's a lot of different places people can become involved in the shooting sports. The Shooting Federation of Canada is focused on those sports that are involved in the Olympic and Pan American Games and major games and world championships run by the International Shooting Sports Federation.
Okay. And how many athletes roughly are we talking about across Canada?
Well, really hard to know numbers because there are so many different associations governing it, but it's in the thousands, probably in the tens of thousands of people that participate in all the different sports. In the Olympic sports, it's a tighter group. I always compare us to the velodrome of cycling. There's a lot of people that own bikes, but there are very few people that do velodrome. The Olympic sports are the same way. So we've got probably 600 to 700 dedicated athletes, and then probably equal in that in people that do it recreationally in their own clubs. And that includes international skeet, international trap, air pistol, air rifle, and then small bore rifle and 22 pistol.
Now, I know one of the challenges of the sport in general is getting audiences. You have very specific venues to go to. People don't necessarily understand the sport. What do you think is the biggest challenge the Federation's looking at in bringing out more audience to the sports?
I think there's several things. I mean, one is truly getting our sport is a pursuit of excellence in a very specific thing, and I think there's just in general people want to watch that excellence, and it's very difficult to actually see it on television. The International Shooting Federation has done a lot of work to ensure our World Cups and our world events are available on YouTube and other venues. But in Canada, most of our gun ranges don't even have Wi-Fi. We barely have cellular coverage in some of the rural areas we have. And so very difficult to get an audience in this two-dimensional era of people wanting to see things on their computers.
Okay. So I know that you are reaching out to new athletes all the time. So let's start just sort of down the list here. So if just someone just said, hey, I'm really interested, I watched a little bit on the Olympics that are just passed, and that's kind of cool. How's the best way to get started in the shooting sports?
I think two things. If you know someone that belongs to a club, it's a great way to be introduced. Just have them bring you along and they can sponsor you to their own clubs. The other way is the provincial sport bodies all exist across Canada. So if you look for your shooting sport federations, in Alberta, it's the Alberta Federation of Shooting Sports. So look for those federations to be able to contact them and get them pointing you in the right direction in terms of finding coaches, finding places to learn to shoot, that type of thing.
Okay. Now, I know that you've been doing a lot of recruiting and trying to get more people involved at Paralympic level. Can you give us some indication of what the Shooting Federation is doing there and how it's working?
Well, currently the para sport of shooting has pistol and rifle in the Olympics. In fact, we have 2 rifle competitors headed to Tokyo this week to compete in the Paralympics. And these tend to be mostly physical disabilities. There is some work with blind stationary target shooting and rifle using sound as the method of determining whether they're pointing at the target, as well as there's now a world championships for trap shooting, which is the shotgun sport with moving targets, and they're hoping to include that in the Olympics in 2028. So we're looking in Canada to start to recruit into those groups. We've done some work with some of the veterans that have been disabled in a way or lost a limb during their service for Canada, and some of those are interested in taking part in pistol, rifle, and shotgun as well. And we are the cool thing about our sport is that we're the great equalizer. Men and women can compete very equally, and this past Olympics has proven that in our sports. So it doesn't require a body size, it doesn't require a height, it doesn't require flexibility. It requires hand-eye coordination and real will to train and improve. In fact, we often get people that fall out of other sports. They're injured from knee injuries, ankle injuries, where they're no longer able to play their sport, but they still have this competitive desire and this desire to pursue excellence, and they can do it in our sport. We're actually even looking at bringing Paralympic biathletes who retire out of their sport, because ours has a greater longevity, to bring those types of athletes into our sports as well, because you've already got the rifle skills, you just have to change the specifics of the rules.
Now, you mentioned trap shooting in your conversation, and I'm just wondering if you could walk the audience and me, quite frankly, through the different types. What is the difference between trap and skeet? And can you just give us a quick overview of what the difference is in these sports?
So there's 2 different types of trap shooting and 2 different types of skeet shooting. There's a North American style, or down the line it's called in Europe, in which the targets are all going away from you at the same height at 22 degrees off center from a machine that sits above ground. In the Olympics, the trap shooting event is from ground level. The targets are about 50% faster and can be at variable heights and a greater width. So it is a little bit crazier to shoot at those fast moving targets. They're about 80 kilometers an hour. We're given 24 grams of ammunition to be able to shoot at them. And they are a disc of about a little less than between 4 and 5 inches in diameter. So it is a really fun, exciting game. It's a lot like golf in terms of the mentality of the short game of golf, in terms of preparing for the shot and being ready for the shot. Lots of mental training happens that way. In skeet, the game is targets that are crossing, and you vary your location around those targets. So the targets are closer but faster, and the international skeet shooters, unlike the North American style, have to start with their gun down. And then they call for a bird. There's up to 3-second delay, and the birds fly, and they have similar types of loads to be able to break those targets. So we always get asked, which one's harder, which one's, it's like comparing mountain biking to velodrome. Which one's harder? Well, both of them have different skills required and competencies required, and they're both done on a bicycle, similar in shotgun. So the Olympic events tend to be a little faster than the North American, and have a few more rules to be able to shoot it effectively.
So just in your comment there, you mentioned releasing the birds. We are talking about a clay disc about 4 inches in diameter. There's no actual birds injured in this sport, right?
Sorry. Yes. Bad term. So it's a clay target. Yes, 4 inches in diameter.
Every sport has its language, and we have to just make sure we're clear that there are no Not like there's somebody releasing pigeons from a cage somewhere.
Yeah, it's like badminton, not an artificial thing, right?
An artificial thing. Perfect. Good. I know that there's also been a huge effort now to recruit women to these sports. Do you want to give us just a little bit of an overview on what's happening there?
I think women and juniors both are a key focus for us because we need to keep building the next generation of elite athletes, and it takes a lot of people trying the sport before you find those people that are truly keen in trying to achieve excellence. We have been working with different groups to develop a marketing campaign to talk to clubs, which tend to be very male dominated, to what it takes to actually make it more enjoyable for women to try out the sport. And that includes things like having the right type of firearms, so that the right size, so that they can actually fit their bodies and fit their type to be able to shoot, as well as the mentality of being able to walk into a club, how to make it more friendly for all people of all diverse backgrounds to be able to enter a club and feel comfortable.
Perfect. Sandra, I really want to thank you for your time today. Thank you for your service to the Shooting Federation of Canada and to the sport. And we look forward to seeing more of the shooting sports on television and in person. So again, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks very much for having me, Norm.
Talk to you soon.
Thanks to Sandra Honor, the president of the Canadian Sports Shooting Federation, for joining us in our first segment. The shooting sports are facing what many sports are facing today, and that is lack of audience, lack of sponsorship, makes it very hard to train athletes to compete at the international level. But yet, athletes competing at the international level drives audiences and drives sponsorship. So it becomes a vicious circle. If you don't have one, you can't get the other. And so this show, Hard to Beat, is going to be working with people from around the world as we talk about the business of sport. We are going to be talking about how you do the business of sport, how you sell tickets, how you get named stars to come and play for your team, and how you move forward in the world of sports business. Now, we are not a sports show in the classic sense. If you are looking for statistics on hockey players or football players, we're not for you. But who we are for is those people who want to work in the sports industry, who want to run a business in the sports industry, who are here to learn about how they can make money on sports without playing on the field. So why did we call the show Hard to Beat? Well, Babe Ruth is one of my heroes. And Babe Ruth once said, "It's hard to beat a person who never gives up." Think about it. It's hard to beat a person who never gives up. And so that's the theme of the show. That's what we're going to be talking about, how to never give up your love of the world of sport. Now, the second half of the show title is Winning the Sports Business Game. And it is going to cover everything but playing on the field. We're going to talk about game day operations and all the things that go to putting on a sporting event. We're going to talk about what happens in the back office, where they sell tickets and marketing and all of the stuff that goes on to make a team successful, or sometimes not so successful. It is $1 trillion business, is this sports world that we live in. $1 trillion business that employs millions of people around the world, at every level from volunteer to CEOs. It's going to talk about how to get a job and how to make jobs by running your own business. And we're going to be talking to sports business leaders from around the world and across all sports as we talk about what's happening out there today and how we can do things better. Now, we're also going to talk about how we got here. I don't believe we can talk about business or politics or anything unless we know our history, unless we know what happened. And so each show, we are going to talk a little bit about the history of the sports business. We're going to talk about things that may surprise you or that you may not have known about or you've heard about, like, say, Babe Ruth. You know who he is. He's a great baseball player, hit lots of home runs, set a record, and then it got broken. But that might be it. But yet there was a whole history that went into Babe, and there was a whole history that went into baseball and the sports world over the last century. So for today, we're sitting here in August. Well, think about it. Back in 1915, in August of 1915, the Chicago White Sox obtained Shoeless Joe Jackson, the famous Shoeless Joe Jackson, from Cleveland for Robert Roth, Larry Chappelle, Ed Klepfer, and $31,500 in cash. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot in today's world, but you think about it, back in 1915, the average person, the average man, for example, was making about $1,500 a year, and the average woman much less than that. So here was a baseball team acquiring a player at multiple times the annual salary of many of the fans, almost all of the fans. And so it made headline news. But it wasn't just that made Shoeless Joe Jackson famous. Sadly, in 1919, he and 7 other players were accused in the Black Sox scandal, not the White Sox, but the Black Sox scandal of 1919. 8 of them in total were accused of throwing a game. In fact, not just any game, but the 1919 World Series against the Cincinnati Reds in exchange for cash from a gambling syndicate led by Arnold Rothstein. What our history is. Sometimes the business of sports was terribly ethical, sometimes not so much. And so if we understand that it is a business, it is what it is, we're going to understand much better. But on the other hand, there's good news. Back in August of 1922, almost 100 years ago, the first Women's World Games, the first track and field competition for women, was conducted over a one-day period, so just one day, at Pershing Stadium in Paris. So is women's sports new? Not so much. It's almost 100 years old, and yet we have a long way to go. So we want to thank 920 Travel Concierge, your experts in customized travel, for bringing us the historic moment each show, and give them a try. They're a great company. So where does that take us? Every kid wants to be an athlete. And dreams are great. There's no question dreams are great. This year, every year, approximately 5.6 million kids across the United States play American football. Now, each one of those has the dream of making it to the big leagues, to making it to the NFL. But it's no different that in any place in the world you can find a boy or girl today picking up a soccer ball for the first time, a baseball and bat for the first time, and trying a sport that they hope will take them to the major leagues. And yet, out of that 5.6 million kids who are playing football today, very few of them will actually make it to the NFL or to World Cup soccer levels or to any international or Olympic level sport. It's not bad that they have dreams, but we have to recognize that so few of them, perhaps less than a handful, will make it to the major leagues, that we as parents and coaches and observers of the sporting world have to take responsibility in showing that there is a life after sport on the field. So for every kid that wants to play football professionally, we need to make sure that they have the tools and the skills to survive after their playing career is over, whether that's over in grade 10 or it's over after 10 years with the NFL. Now, I talk to teachers and coaches all over the world, and it amazes me that they tell me on a regular basis that parents are so convinced their kids are going to make it to the major leagues in baseball or football or soccer that they are allowing their kids to fail at school, to not get the grades they need to move on. Now, is this all parents? Of course not. My daughter fences at the national level and she's in college for engineering. I'm only one of millions of parents who recognize the challenge. And yet the world is going to be better when we tell our kids, play sports for the rest of your life because you love it, not because you're going to make a ton of money and drive a fancy car. Now, when I talk to these coaches and business owners and teachers, I ask them, what are the secrets to to surviving and living in the world of sport for all of your life and enjoying what you love to do. And they tell me there's really three things. One is you have to have a work ethic. You have to be able to move forward and do the job. Now, all of that energy the kids put in the weight room and on the track and practicing and all the rest, that has to come out in their work life as well. They have to get there early and stay late and do the work that's necessary, because so few do. And if they do that, they are almost guaranteeing themselves success in the business world. So everyone I talk to says work ethic, that ability to see a job and do it well, will carry people as far as anything will, and farther than most. So a work ethic is where it all starts. Step two, I'm told, is flexibility and problem solving. Coaches and business leaders around the world are looking for people who can solve problems. Simply coming in and doing the job is not enough. It's being able to see the challenge, to understand the reality that's facing them, to look at all of the facts and pull them all together in a way that will then tell the world, I have this figured out. I can solve this problem. So if you combine a work ethic with a flexibility and a problem-solving mindset, your career is going to go a very long way. Now, interestingly enough, these are the two things that most athletes have. They work really hard, they work in the weight room, they do the running on the track, they do all of those things to be better at their sport. They just need to take that mindset and apply it over to a business world. And it's the same thing with flexibility and problem solving. Football quarterback goes out on the field, he has to see what's in front of him, he has to decide what the best play is, he works with his coach to decide what the best thing to do is, and the team pulls behind them. It's the secret of a successful football team. It's also the success of a successful business, or the secret of getting along and working in a job. The final thing to look at is being able to see the future, being able to understand what's coming at us and how it's going to work. So what does that mean? Well, look at the last Olympics, the ones that just happened in Tokyo. We saw new sports like skateboarding and rock climbing coming into the Olympic world because we need to bring in younger audiences. The traditional sports are not necessarily bringing new audiences, and those new audiences are the ones that all of the sponsors want to attack and attract so that they can make money on selling products. So sport is a business, and we need to see where it's going to go. Now, the reality is that we can't tell the future. If we could, quite frankly, if I could tell the future, I'd be on a beach at Tahiti somewhere. But the reality is that we can see what's happening. So what's a big chunk that we're going to talk about here on the show is we're going to talk about esports and how esports is moving forward. Now, I'm of a generation that gaming, video games meant playing Pong. I know that half the audience doesn't even know what that is, but trust me, it wasn't something you were going to go and pay in a stadium to watch somebody else do. And yet esports is exactly that. It's audiences paying dollars for sponsors to also sponsor those events, to go to an arena or watch it on home live streaming, other people playing video games. Way of the future. We can do whatever we want, but the reality is, I have a sign in my office that says, doing new things is easy. It's letting go of the old that's difficult. And it really is difficult. We go back to the old lessons all the time. And what we need to do is be looking forward. And we need to infuse our kids with that reality, that they are going to have to look forward rather than backward if they're going to be successful. And you'll say, yes, they all know computers and all the rest. That's not the issue. It's how are they being used and how can they get a job doing it? So, hard to beat. This show is going to be talking with people all over the world about the business of sport. We want to examine how you run a business. What are the new businesses that are going to be coming up? How are they going to work? We want to hear from coaches as to what they see is the future for kids playing sports, athletes playing sports, and then what's after that for them in the sporting world. It's our job as a show to pull all of this together. Now, how's the show going to work? Well, this is our first show. It's our initial episode. So what I need to hear is from people who want to make the show better. Now, we would love to have constructive criticism, please. No one likes to be told they did a crappy job. But we do need to hear of what type of guests you would like to hear on the show. Who should I be talking to? What topic should we be bringing up for discussion? And where should we be going? Because this show is portable. We can take it on the road. We can go and talk to people about what it is that is driving the sports industry. Now, also want to hear from schools and educators as to what they're seeing. I don't just mean at the high school level, the college level. What is happening in your sports that is driving new things? What are new models that you're using? And we're going to bring that all to the show, because the show really doesn't just belong to us. In fact, it hardly belongs to us. It belongs to you as the fans. It belongs to you as the people who are interested in what it is you need to do to be successful in sports and how you're going to drive your business. So, as we look forward, I want you to take a look around you, look around the world and see what it is that's important to you and how you see this show helping you out. When we have all of that together, we are going to be able to pull the pieces of the pie together and make it better. So for now, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for your attention. Look forward to hearing from you. And remember, it's hard to beat a person who never gives up.